We're keeping you ahead of the very latest as Tropical Storm Alex is forecast to strengthen in the Gulf of Mexico. Details on hurricane watches and the path of this storm are coming up.
And we're not ruling out the chance of severe weather today. There are 2 severe weather watches in effect right now, covering the entire megalopolis for damaging winds and locally heavy rain. All the details and much more coming up.
Hello and welcome to PM Edition on this Monday. We'll be extending our coverage, by the way, all week long to keep you ahead of Tropical Storm Alex and its impacts. I'm Nick Walker.
And I'm Vivian Brown. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, though Alex has officially moved offshore again, moving away from the Yucatan Peninsula, it's still bringing lots of rain to Mexico. Check out this video. Alex caused flooding and mudslides and left at least 4 people dead in Central America over the weekend. Thousands of residents and tourists have been evacuated, but now eyes turn north, where hurricane watches have been posted for South Texas and the northern parts of Mexico. And for more on the latest, let's turn it back over to Nick.
And you know, Vivian, the rain's not over yet there in the Yucatan. We could see 3 to 6 inches more and maybe even locally heavier amounts. So more floods, more mudslides here over the Yucatan Peninsula, even though Alex has moved off into the Gulf of Mexico over open waters and has become a tropical storm again. It's moving fairly slowly toward the north-northwest, about 5 miles an hour right now. 60-mile-an-hour winds in the center, but that is expected to increase and probably up to hurricane strength, maybe even by this time tomorrow. We'll certainly be watching. It's a widespread area of circulation. Hurricane advisories are already posted. So we have new rules now for hurricane advisories. 48 hours advance warning beginning this season, and that's what we have here for portions of southern Texas on down into Mexico, all the way from La Cruz, Mexico, up toward Baffin Bay, just south of the Corpus Christi area. And as a matter of fact, the South Padre Islands mayor is asking for voluntary relocation now of residents of South Padre Island. So you need to get out of harm's way and get out early, as we anticipate probably landfall sometime later on this week, maybe around late Wednesday on into Thursday morning, somewhere here over this widespread area. But even though we do expect to see hurricane force winds in this region somewhere, we're going to see rain over a widespread area. And certainly we're already even seeing it here into the southeastern coast. We want to go live now to Jim Cantore. He's there in Venice, Louisiana, watching the potential impacts, of course, to the oil spill cleanup. And Jim, obviously a lot of folks are going to be impacted by this, and it's not going to be good news no matter how you strike it.
No, it really isn't. But right now, Nick, according to what we've heard, you know, the full-scale operations, the big operations of actually collecting the oil, if you will, from the leak itself, are not going to be discontinued. As a matter of fact, at about 3:30, 3:45 local time, Governor Jindal is going to comment on the operations and the impacts, if you will, of Alex, because there are impacts. Okay, it's the analogy I've been trying to use is kind of like, think about what happens when you drop a rock in a glass pond. You see that wave just ripple right out. Well, having a tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico is that rock, and of course the Gulf of Mexico is that pond. So we are going to get waves. The gradient between Alex and the high pressure to our east is creating a fetch of wind, a southerly wind that is coming over the Deepwater Horizon spill and also right onto the coast and through here, and that is producing wave action. It's also producing some water rise here, which I'll talk about in the form of coastal flood watches. But the waves alone will potentially bring some of this oil in further inland, perhaps as far inland as we've seen it, further east and also further west, given the easterly and, if you will, southeasterly component of the wind. So there's a lot of dispersion potential with this, not in high concentrations, but certainly enough that'll get us get our eyes on it, that's for sure. Radar, guys, is looking like this. Now, we've had a few showers and thunderstorms. There's a tremendous water content available to us here. These will continue to develop over the next 24 to 48 hours. As a matter of fact, some of the highest water content I've ever seen, close to 3 inches of precipitable water values. That's phenomenal. That's a phenomenal amount of water just sitting out there in the atmosphere. And, you know, flooding is going to be a high risk here over the next 48 hours. You accompany that with the coastal rise. Of course, you start bringing in water. That means water can't get out. You know what I'm talking about if you live in a low-lying area. If you plug the areas where the drains are draining, well, the drains aren't going to drain. And that means we're going to get some backup with water in through here. So obviously a huge concern for not only coastal flooding, but also potentially flash flooding here, Nick. Got a chance to talk to Craig Fugate earlier on. He was on the same plane ride I was, about how Alex plays a role in what he does.
Well, the Coast Guard's been watching it closely, talking to the Hurricane Center. It looks like Alex is far enough west not to have any direct impacts, but a hurricane watch went up. So now the attention turns to those folks in the hurricane watch along the Texas coast.
And of course, his concern is getting people out of harm's way with or without the oil. That will continue to be the main concern, whether it's in Texas, whether it's Louisiana or Florida, or eventually the East Coast for that matter. That is the bottom line in through here. But his attention's shifting a little bit farther to the west as we continue to watch the impacts, and probably the worst that we've seen, Nick, of an overall weather standpoint on this oil disaster since it began 70 days ago. Back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim Cantore, live in Venice, Louisiana. No doubt about that. It is going to be big impacts. And our coverage is just beginning here on PM Edition. Still ahead, we'll